Basketball cards have been on a non-stop free fall for the last 2 years. What can they do to get back on top? We're going to talk about that and more today on Cards on the Table. Hey everyone, welcome back to Cards on the Table. I am here today with Ben and Doug, two guys I'd rather hear from than Jeff, and I'm sure you agree. We've got some great topics today. We're going to talk about our hot takes for this NBA season. We're going to talk about grading companies not named PSA as well as non-sports cards. But first, we're going to talk about the free fall that basketball cards have been on for quite some time now. We saw this huge run up, and basketball cards were all the rage. They were dominating. They overtook baseball cards as the most popular sport in the hobby for a good stretch there. Still very popular, but the prices have been coming down drastically, and our users want to know why, and are they ever going to get back to where they were before? I want to start with you, Doug, and get your take. What's it going to take? Is this going to stabilize? Are we just going to keep seeing these prices come down? What's gone on?
I mean, it will stabilize at some point, but it also had a long way to fall. I mean, there was this huge boom right around the pandemic, around 2019, and there was no way that was going to be sustainable. And because of how high the basketball market reached, it's going to look like the biggest fall because it has so much further to go, right? But it makes sense that football has overtaken it because that is the most popular sport in America. I will say for the future of the basketball market, when trading cards, or if trading cards become more popular globally, then you could see the basketball market not only catch up, but pass football and be number one again, because it is a more popular sport globally than football is. It's played in more countries. It's viewed in more countries than football is. But right now, trading cards are primarily American, and we care more about football. I'll also say that, bad draft classes can hurt, or draft classes that you invest a lot of money in. 2019 that don't pan out, Zion, Ja, those can hurt people a lot and leave you with a bad taste in your mouth. But if someone like Wembanyama, if Chet Holmgren, the resurgence of Cade Cunningham that we're seeing, if some of these guys can help rise the tide, then that helps the entire market. So I think we need, some solid draft classes, some solid rookie performances, and we'll stabilize. And then we need the whole global economy to catch on to the card market, and then maybe it takes off again.
Yeah. So Doug says global spread.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this recently, can Wemby save the hobby? Can he save basketball cards? Do you agree with that? Do you have any other thoughts about where basketball cards are headed?
So I'll say that I'm bullish for a lot, similar things to what Doug said. The global appeal, I think, really is important. I also think global appeal in regions that are growing within the hobby specifically. We can talk about things like Europe, where it's not really growing as fast, but regions like Australia and New Zealand, really popular with basketball. East Asia with China, really popular basketball-wise, and we're seeing those areas really grow within the hobby. Those things have to link up, right? So I think that's definitely good news. One reason I think to be a little bearish is some of the guys that have carried the hobby for so long, they're going to be out soon. LeBron going to retire soon. Steph going to retire soon. To a lesser extent, someone like Kevin Durant is going to retire soon. But we'll have to see. I think the NBA is in a really good place with some of the new stars. And one thing that I'll say will be interesting is 2 of the top 5 players in the NBA are European. Luka, Jokic.
Giannis.
Giannis. There you go. He also counts too. Those guys, I'm curious to see if there'll be any impact within that region where we could really see a lot of growth within the hobby, and then obviously Wemby.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, I had it written down, like you said, Doug, things went up so far.
Yeah.
What goes up must come down, right? Mm-hmm. And basketball cards, for sure, went up the most, and so now they've been coming down the most. I do think that international appeal has a lot to do with it, but the draft class thing is certainly, it's like people got very snake bitten by that 2019 class, which seemed so promising and has since fallen apart for so many reasons. And then we saw the number 1 draft picks from 2020. Yeah. Well, I guess LaMelo wasn't number 1, but he was a top draft pick. He was really the most hyped pick.
He was the key guy.
He was the key guy, and then Cade both get hurt, right? So we've seen these issues over and over again. Now, I'm curious from both of you, kind of a quick hitter question. If you were going to guess over the next year, by era, let's call vintage cards anything pre-90s, 90s, 2000s, and then ultra modern for basketball. If you had to put money into one of those eras, what would you pick? Doug, I'll start with you.
Honestly, I would probably put it into ultra modern because it's going to see the most immediate rise, and you can get in and get out quickly. You have to be a lot smarter, and you have to be a lot more selective if you do anything prior to that. You have to, be able to afford legacy type players. You have to be able to make some predictions as far as how careers are going to turn out. But if you go with ultra modern, you can get in, get out, and kind of avoid harm.
Okay. What's your 10-second pick?
I'd go a little bit older than that, but I'd say modern. Targeting
2000s guys.
Yeah, early 2000s. Obviously, I'm a LeBron guy. That's what I would be focusing on.
Nice. Let us know down in the comments what you think about that and when are basketball cards going to stabilize. Now, Pristine Auctions.
Yeah.
They've always got some sweet stuff rolling. This month on their Elite Auction, something caught my eye that there's not a lot of these out there. That's tennis cards. I'm a tennis guy. I know it's not for everybody, but you're talking about two of the greatest of all time. There is a Roger Federer, Pete Sampras, dual on-card auto, 2010 Ace Authentic Aces dual autograph. That's numbered to 25 PSA 8. You're talking about Sampras, the greatest player from his era, as well as Federer, arguably the greatest of all time. What do you got, Ben?
Well, I definitely love that card as well. I'm actually going with a Sports Illustrated cover. It's the original #1. I think it's a CGC 9.5. And then the cool thing there is that it features former Braves great Eddie Matthews.
Oh, nice. Wow. Sweet. Awesome. Doug, what about you?
I'm going with Trevor Lawrence. There is a Optic rated rookie on-card auto green color match out of 5 on there. And I'm one of the people that prefer Optic to Prism, the nice color match, the on-card autos that provides, and then out of 5 for a T-Law rookie. It's pretty sweet.
I know you're a big rated rookie guy. You can head over to pristineauction.com and make sure to use promo code SCI when you register. That'll get you $10 off your first purchase, pristineauction.com. Okay, data dive this last week. I did some hot takes, 10 hot takes, 5 of them with a little bit of detail, 5 quick hitters.
Were they really hot?
Some of them maybe, some of them I was trying to be a little spicy, maybe a little idealistic on a few. I want to know what you guys thought of those, and do you have any of your own hot predictions for this coming season? I'll start with you this time, sir.
So the first one it really wasn't a hot take. You said, well, Luka's not going to win the MVP. Okay, there's a whole bunch of other dudes that could win the MVP. I don't think you're really going far out there. But to add on to it a little bit, I think there's a very real chance, this is my hot take, I think there's a very real chance that this could be a make or break year for Luka Doncic and his card market. I think right now his card prices have been super, super high. It's had the title cooked into it. It's had the MVP cooked into it. He's, I think, sort of getting to the status that we saw with LeBron before he went to Miami, where it's a whole bunch of parts coming in and out of the Dallas Mavericks to varying success. And to be honest, I'm not a Kyrie believer. I think outside of really a few seasons with LeBron in Cleveland, he's pretty much burned everything down everywhere he's been. And I also don't like the fact that from a playing standpoint on the court, they do the same stuff.
Yeah.
They do exactly they do exactly the same stuff. Neither is a good defender. Neither is adding really anything other than a ton of offense. That's problematic for me.
Saw a hot take recently with Kenyon Martin claiming that Kyrie, not Luka, was the best player on the Mavs, and I sort of balked at that. Luka knows how to pass, so I don't agree necessarily that this is like the end of the road for Luka, do or die. I think kind of the points Ben made might suggest otherwise, that LeBron went on to do things that Giannis took him a little more time. I like Luka, just not this season, but what do you think, Doug?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think any of those were too hot of takes. I thought it was interesting you didn't put Luka in your top 5 though, and you put guys like Tatum and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in there.
Yeah.
I would probably put him ahead of those guys, but he wouldn't make my top 3. I think the top 3 is solid. We know it's, we kind of know what to expect there. Unless we have some voter fatigue, and then Luka could maybe wiggle his way into that conversation. One of the things that you put on there that I thought was interesting was Jonathan Kuminga, the future of the Warriors.
Oh yeah, don't do that. I don't like that.
that was probably the one I thought was the hottest.
I was trying to do something spicy.
Yeah. That was an interesting one for me. If I were making that list, I've already said this actually recently. My hot take is I think Tyler Herro's an all-star this year. And now I can add my guy Tyrese Maxey to that list without Harden in his way. I think Maxey is primed to blow up. I think Hero has been completely overlooked, and he's been trade bait for every other player. But I think he's actually the primary scorer on that team. I think he'll probably take over Jimmy Butler's role as leading scorer before the year's over.
I would argue you're biased with the hat, but we all know. I actually agree with that. I agree with both of those things. Those guys can seriously ball. What's interesting to me about the Warriors is I just feel like at some point that thing's got to come to an end. Clay didn't look like Clay last year. I did say in my video that they're going to rely too much on Steph. Well, so far they are, but he's just playing absolutely out of his mind.
It's like 4 games into the season.
It's 4 games. Luka's playing incredibly, so we'll see. Again, let us know down in the comments. Do you think we're off our rocker? Go check out that video on the Market Movers channel and make sure to subscribe over there as well. And speaking of Market Movers, you got to check this out. All right, everybody, head out to the App Store and get your hands on that limitless data. We've got that new sales history, multiple marketplaces. You can try it out absolutely free when you download it on Apple or Android. Moving on to our mailbag topics. As you know, these are the topics that are suggested and asked by you in the comments, so let us know down there what questions you'd like us to answer next week. And the first one came from a viewer. They want to know, what can SGC, what can CGC, for that matter, anybody else out in the market, not named PSA, do to close the gap, to catch up? We're seeing all the gem rate data coming out month after month, million plus cards by PSA, way fewer than that by any other company. We know that CGC rebranded, they changed their labels, obviously made some grading changes. SGC is committed to Tuxedo Time, but they maybe need a rebrand, but they're really dedicated to good customer service. So I want to know from you guys. I'll start with you this time, Doug. Can they do anything? Is there what would possibly close the gap here?
Yeah, so I was presented with this question. My first thought is, do you really want to catch up to PSA? Do you really want to crank out 1.4 million cards a month? I don't know as a consumer that's something I would want to see. I don't want to see them trying to match that volume. For me, I would rather see them focus on the accuracy of their grading. I would rather see them put energy and effort into slab and label design. And I'm not concerned with how fast or how many cards you can put out in a given month, have competitive pricing, have predictable turnaround times. PSA right now is all over the place. There's no consistency between their service levels. Yep. Their cheaper service level can often come back twice as fast as a more expensive, faster tier, and there's no rhyme or reason for that. And ingestion times can be completely unpredictable. I think they're suffering right now from the amount of volume that they're getting, and I would love to see one of these other companies or multiple other companies take advantage of that by just providing consistency. Yeah. Again, predictability, accuracy, and then we can talk about things like the slab and the label, because that's all going to be subjective anyway, but not nail down the things that you can nail down and just be a solid company.
Yeah, that's one of the things I for sure had written down. Like, just keep focusing on yourself.
Yeah.
Keep focusing on yourself. And then the only other thing that I think these other companies could really hope for is that if PSA made some big slip-ups along the way and kind of shot themselves in the foot, what do you think, Ben? Anything different from what Doug said?
So I think the thing that I would like to see is, and this goes for the grading companies, and this goes for the marketing or marketplaces too. Everyone is trying to be the best at everything. Everybody for the marketplaces, they all want to have a vault, and they all want to have a fixed price marketplace, and they all want to have a high-end auction. And I think it would do some of these companies a lot of good, especially in the grading space, to be more focused. Okay. With SGC, a lot of people, a lot of collectors that have been around for a long time, view them as the best source for vintage. Yeah. I think I would lean into that a little bit more. I don't think they really need to change anything in terms of branding. I think Tuxedo Time is great. I think it's vastly different from PSA, and I think that's important. CGC, I liked the rebrand. I hated the fact that they changed the labels. So now that a lot of the cards are different than what you had with the comics, I thought the continuity was really good, and that could be a potential way to get non-sports collectors to grade with you. But instead of trying to do everything, just focus on being really, really good at one lane.
Okay.
PSA has already proven that they're sort of good at everything. You're not going to beat them at that at this point.
Yeah, SGC's got great customer service. CGC's got great slab design. We know those. One thing I'd worry about is if vintage dries up. Eventually, there's no vintage cards left, so to speak. There's fewer and fewer as they get graded. The big problem is the secondary price gap. And until that changes, it's a bit of a chicken and an egg thing. It's going to be hard for people to justify, even when they're rooting for those other companies, not to send certain things into PSA. All right, our second and last question here. It's around non-sports cards. We're talking TCG, Marvel, Star Wars, Lorcana, other things like this. What do you guys think we can expect from non-sports cards for the immediate horizon? Let's say 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Where's this headed? There's been obviously a lot of Star Wars hype previously. That's kind of cooled off. Marvel hype has cooled off. Lorcana, kind of flared and is stabilized. What do you guys think about that, Ben? I'll switch back to you.
Well, I'm going to go directly against our good friend, Mr. Jeff Wilson, who is all aboard the Lorcana train, and I think that flopped super hard. And in fact, I'll double down. I think when a lot of us were in the office and saw him say, Lorcana could be, Disney could be bigger than Pokemon, a lot of us were like, no, don't do that. But now,
cut that out.
On the flip side, I think Pokemon is getting better. I think there's a very good argument that Pokemon 151 is the best release of any card release throughout the entire year. Sports, non-sports, TCG, Pokemon 151 is one of the best products that I think we've seen in years. So I think Pokemon getting much, much better. Like you said, Marvel Masterpieces I think was a little bit of a letdown. Galaxy Chrome from Star Wars I thought was good again, but the one in 2020, 2021, when that made its resurgence, I think there was a lot of hype around that, and it was similar quality to this year, but just the hype wasn't built up, and I'm still interested to see what Magic the Gathering is going to keep doing. They're coming out with all these different collaborations. I think it's good stuff. I'm still pretty bullish on non-sports cards overall. And I think Doug and I probably align. I think there's a bigger market for Pokemon than there is for sports cards.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because you have to segment. We talk about non-sports cards, but these are each things.
Yeah.
Pokemon, very loyal fan base. There's not a lot of turbulence there, right? Magic, also the same, but a smaller fan base. And then within Marvel, we've talked about how there's the comic book fans, and then there's the MCU fans, and those two things don't always overlap. So, what's your take on how we segment that, or this whole thing overall?
Honestly, what I would like to see with most of this is a reboot. Because I think as each market individually started to get really hot, as Star Wars got really hot, as Marvel got really hot, we started to see the amount of product being made 10x. Now everything's got a Sapphire. It's got, it's got a movie version versus a comic book version versus this universe version, and there's just so much of it now. I would really like to just see it get back to what it used to be 3 years ago or so with the amount of sets that come out. So focus on the individual quality of each set, and then we don't have to worry about 20 different sets coming out each year. That some of them are Return of the Jedi, but this one is basic Star Wars, or this one's retro. It's just way too much, and I think we've suffered burnout because of that. These companies try to take advantage of the rush that came through. So let's reboot. Let's go back to the basics of the non-sports world. I think Pokemon's doing fine though. I think everything they're doing is outside of overprinting, which they do seem to be printing ton.
They've done that forever though.
Outside of that, I think they're kind of making all the right moves, and I would like to see other companies or other IPs follow suit.
Yeah, cool. Well, we know the MCU has kind of lost a little bit of its luster. People aren't as excited about that. Star Wars is in a similar boat. I think these are really hot. One thing that would be cool, you kind of touched on this, is maybe have Sapphire, but like they do for soccer, where they put Optic into Donruss, have Sapphire as a hit, like an ice parallel within, so it's not so convoluted.
Yeah, I don't think we need individual Sapphire Star Wars releases.
Manufacturers may disagree. Time will tell. All right, that wraps it up for this week. We're always excited to get to talk the three of us and share our opinions.
No, Jeff.
But we always love to hear from you down below in the comments. Make sure to let us know what you think and ask us what questions you want us to answer next week. Download Market Movers, check out Pristine Auction, and until next time, we'll see you.